Hey, everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I'm Patrick,
And I'm Paul.
and we're going to be talking about some really, really crappy casting decisions. And most of all, we want to hear what your thoughts on our thoughts are, but we want to hear your thoughts on what your thoughts are. I'd love to know out there if anybody is like, one that never gets mentioned. Because there's always that, you have a conversation with movie nerds, and people are always like, who never gets mentioned? Woody Allen and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, hang on, it was a whole Woody Allen film. That's not just bad casting. He wrote that. So, Paul, I know a lot of people will disagree with some choices we make. A lot of
Yeah.
people will absolutely agree with some choices we make. But most important thing is get yourselves in the comments. Let us know. So, Paul, what do you think is the key thing when you're making a movie and you're trying to cast for it? Is it understanding the character or understanding the actor that needs to be able to play the character?
I guess as for me, when I think of a character that I'm bringing to the screen, I always just automatically have a probably an actor in my head. Either because they've played similar characters in the past, or they've played essentially a combination of characters that would be essentially the character I'm thinking of. I guess that's how I would do it.
Gotcha.
But it's definitely kind of a chicken and egg thing.
Right.
I don't.
Well, I'm not going to be so kind when it comes to some of the actors. I'm going to straight up say they're just bad actors in general, and that's not going to apply to Jared Leto. I'm just mentioning this because you cannot talk about bad casting without somebody bringing up Jared Leto playing the Joker in the Suicide Squad. I would not usually defend him, but I'm about to. So, internet, sharpen your knives. I think he was going somewhere. Okay, you don't have to be a douche and do all the behind the scenes things that he did. You're distancing yourself from me, and I respect that.
Oh,
I don't know why he has to be the way he is. But when it comes to portraying a different, weird, extended, whatever Joker, fine. Like I get it. There's stuff. But that movie was a mess, not just because of him. The portrayal was maybe there, maybe not there, but we'll never know. So I don't know if he was terrible casting as much as there was an awful lot of problems in the conception. If you said to me in isolation, having never seen Jared Leto play the Joker, you'd said, we've cast Leto as Joker. I'd be like, and what are you going for? And they're like, oh, we're going for a bit of a weird gangster vibe. I'm like, okay, maybe he can do it. I wouldn't have said that's bad casting on the conceptual stage. I think
yeah,
it turned out not to be great, though.
yeah. I would agree with that concept in the sense that he definitely is portraying a new. Every Joker is a new Joker, and they tried to make essentially a Joker more set in kind of a reality.
Mm.
Because that's what the DC tried to do, to try to be more realistic as with superheroes and villains and stuff like that. That this is the Joker that we would get. So
Yeah.
I get the conceptual part where they're just like, this is who we're getting to play our kind of like mobster kingpin kind of Joker. I definitely get it, but yeah, I do think that the Suicide Squad was a mess. So
Maybe not an example of pure mistake out of the gate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick on a whole franchise, Paul, to kick us off. Because what's better than saying one person? You may as well pick a whole franchise. The Terminator franchise has done an amazing job at casting in so many ways. Arnie's an amazing Terminator. Bill
it
Paxton
was.
was an amazing, annoying dude at an observatory. Who are you going to pick
I was
on?
gonna say good for like quickly going. It's not Arnie, because that would just be hilarious. They'll just be like,
Good
it's Arnold
point.
Schwarzenegger. The guy just can't play a Terminator.
Yeah.
It's like he's the only.
He is essentially the perfect casting. But I actually, and you'll see in a moment where I'm going with this, it's not even the various bad John Connors that they've had. And Nick Stahl, I'm looking at you as forgiveness is there. There's actually been worse than him, I think, when it comes to John Connor. But as the franchise moved on, so after the first film and the second film, casting became a serious problem. And if you take something like Terminator Salvation, what Christian Bale is on the poster, and you're thinking Christian Bale in a Terminator movie. He's an amazing actor. You can't badly cast him. And as it turns out, I don't necessarily think they did. Terminator Salvation, not my favorite of the Terminator movies. I just have a bit of a thing. As anybody who's watched the channel for a while, I pick on Sam Worthington all the time. So Paul, I'm going to let it go. I do think everybody else is like he's the best thing about that movie. I think he was bad. I think he was bad. He was bad casting, and I think he was bad. There you go. So I'm going to move on to the one that everybody always expects now, because the world pooped its pants with Terminator Genesis. I hate their spelling of Genesis. And it's like, oh, Emilia Clarke. She was the worst bit of casting ever. Controversial take coming in from the outside, Paul. Coming around the final corner, I'm going to go, I didn't think she was terrible casting. I don't think conceptually she was terrible casting. I don't know if she gave the best performance, but just as far as being cast, I don't think she was a massive mistake. It didn't work out, but I don't think she was a massive mistake. What's your take on it, Paul?
For Emily Clark as Sarah Connor, I don't. Like, they were trying to play a kind of like middle after Terminator 1, between Terminator 2, kind of
Between
like,
soft and hard.
yeah, kind of like, as in she's growing into the legends that like Sarah Connor will become, which I didn't mind, kind of thing. I do think that actors around her were very wooden, which made it probably a lot more difficult to kind of play off of this kind of like,
Yeah.
I still have emotions and I'm still like not closed off from humanity yet, and being locked in a padded room doing push-ups, Terminator 2 kind of character. Whereas acting with a wooden, and I'm not even meaning Arnold Schwarzenegger, because that character, as much as that character, the Terminator, is wooden, it gives off more fucking riz than like a lot of the other fucking characters in that movie. And I pardon my French.
Go for it.
Or my bad language.
We mark these things as not for kids anyway. But Paul, that's why on paper Emilia Clarke wasn't a terrible idea. I don't think the portrayal worked out. Is she to blame for that? Partially, probably. Is everybody involved overall to blame for that? I would say yeah. Team effort to have that go as badly as it did. But on paper, here's somebody I would have said, don't do it. And it is Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese. Much like Sam Worthington, it's because, look, I know everybody loves his Captain Boomerang, etc., but Jai Courtney's not... I'm not going to sit here and talk about bad actors, because I'm not a good actor. But let's just say he wouldn't be my preferred choice for a lot of things, which is fine. Also, there's another really bad John Connor in that screen. But if you just take Jai Courtney, the idea that Kyle Reese, and this is why he's my pick from the all, it's not Cristiano Loken, it's not anybody from any of the other Terminators. It's because Kyle Reese, when you start the Terminator movies, people think Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the characters that made it what it was and made it into a franchise were Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese. And Kyle Reese was masterfully played with this kind of soft, I don't know, this just the soft hero. That's what he was. He was hard, but he was emotionally open. He was longing for love. He was longing for acceptance. He was a man out of time, lost in time, going back to meet the woman that he didn't understand why he loved her. Like, it's lots and lots of lovely, squishy things, along with the ability to look like you've been living in a future hellscape and also being a badass Marine. Now, he's done a few of these things twice, because he also did it in Aliens. So, you know that if you cast him, you're getting a good job of this. I don't think Beefcake Jai Courtney was ever going to be able to give any Kyle Reese, unless you completely rewrote the timeline. You want to pick on him for a minute, or should I move on?
I don't see why he's on screen.
I'm happy with that statement.
Like, I don't. He's in not Insurgent, Defiance or whatever that like Hunger Games knockoff series is, and he's terrible in that. Pretty much everything I've seen in him, I just haven't enjoyed his characters. Like, that's unfair. There's going to be a movie out there that I probably enjoy his character, but so far I haven't.
Boomerang in Suicide Squad. Enjoyable there. Like, as enjoyable as he's going to get.
Yeah, I guess so.
But that's the point, Paul. So when it comes to bad casting, on paper, bad idea. Because in this case, we have a preconceived notion of Kyle Reese because of previous portrayals. That's not always the case. But if you look at it on paper, does Jai Courtney scream to you, malnourished, a future survivor with love and rage in his heart, an immense sense of duty, yet with an innate respect for women and authority. No, Jai Courtney does not scream that ever. He doesn't seem like the guy that's going to be able to pull that off. So some of the worst casting in of all time can be found across the various Terminator movies. I'm singling him out. Sorry, Jai Courtney. So, Paul, what would you like? Let's move on and give that poor Jai a break. I see I did a Jai guy thing there.
So on to, from a franchise to another franchise, I'm going to choose essentially Sophie Turner as Jean Grey from the X-Men.
Ooh, sorry, Sophie.
Yeah,
Right.
I have no problem. I have no problem. So she plays Jean Grey, the Phoenix, which is very powerful telepathy and telekinetic mutant. Yeah, just I don't know. The character seems like a more kind of like responsible character, but yet still got humanity with them. Whereas Sophie's character consistently feels like, I don't know, just a completely locked off person, and like I know from a certain perspective it's kind of showing the inner character of their power being locked off to them and stuff like that. But it's just like, how is Scott Summer meant to fall in love with her?
Yeah.
Is my big thing. Like she's very very closed off and kind of things, and she seems like she's playing. She became famous obviously from which Game of Thrones, which was she played which was Sansa, which was
Quite an emotionally controlled, locked off person for quite a bit of that show.
Funny enough, Sansa becomes more locked off as the series progresses, but the Sansa at the start is all whimsical and loving.
Playing
and the whole thing is
as a child, playing a child or playing a younger person, I guess. Child is maybe too strong.
Yeah, like it's essentially a naive person, kind of thing. But they haven't been outside their castle much, and they're naive to the actual run into the world. But as their character goes through it, they get more and more kind of things. It feels like Jean Grey is in between those two characters, the naive person and the locked off person. It feels like she should be reserved. Like Jean Grey's very reserved and responsible, but she's also very charismatic, very caring, and very she's very motherly. Which is just not portrayed by Sophie Turner in any kind of way in the X-Men kind of like things.
Then I've got to start defending her because, and I want to make it clear, I don't want to, but it's for the sake of this discussion that I'm going to defend her, because I think I like Dark Phoenix was bad. I think the whole run, I don't think she was good casting. I agree with you. I don't think she was good casting as Jean Grey. Across all of the movies she was in. I don't think she's a bad actress. I think this is one of those mismatches. And I hate to say it, I think sometimes people just go, oh, red hair, she she could look. She's got the look, she could do it. That's a bad way to cast somebody. And I think, to be fair, and I'm going to go back to the Dark Phoenix poster, she's supposed to be, dark and scary by the end of it all. She's supposed to be powerful, and you're supposed to have a certain level of fear. I think she can pull that off. I don't think the movie that they gave her, she was ever going to pull it off in. I think she's bad casting on paper for the simple reason that you've given the reasons, but there is no overlap between the character that they were going to write for her and her obvious kind of vibe, let's say. She was never going to carry that feeling of, well, this is somebody who's conflicted, but is still openly emotional, but yet can be harsh and scary. She played in Game of Thrones over a long period of time, a character that changed over a long period of time and ended up quite terse and closed off. None of that was brought to any of the X-Men, the Vaughn X-Men movies that she was in. I just think it was not a good match. I don't think that it's because she was a bad actress, but I agree with you. Not a good match.
I want to make it clear. I don't think it's her skill set. I just think it's a combination of her vision of Jean Grey and the director's vision of the overall Jean Grey story that is the mismatch here.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Because Dark Phoenix you get to the point where Dark Phoenix, you get to the point where she's overly powerful. It is kind of more kind of telling towards the actors, kind of, or more towards her vibe and stuff. But the earlier stages where you're trying, like, she's trying to be kind of more kind of like the girl next door, but can by accidentally kill everybody, kind of vibe. That's what you really, really kind of want.
Well, ironically, okay, you've lost my screen. You've still got my audio, I
Yeah,
hope, Paul. I will try and fix that.
still have your audio.
Good.
But yeah, so that's my overall thought of Sophie Turner. It's just, yeah, I see that Gavin said, "What if you swapped them, Emilia Clarke, and Sophie Turner between X Men and Terminator?" No, like, once again, excuse me, I think Emily Clark is really, really good in Terminator. I think it's just an overall kind of like difficult film. Genesis was never a good film.
No, and
Um,
honestly, if you did swap them, I think I don't think it would have worked for Genesis, but I actually think Emilia Clarke could have maybe. Here's the thing, Paul. Actually, who would you sub in if you were in that the room with Vaughn when they were doing First Class and they're like, right, we're picking our Jean Grey. I would have actually probably looked at the whole sheet and gone, well, look who we got playing Mystique here, young Mystique. I think
yeah,
she might be the one that we should be swapping in.
yeah, I could see Jennifer Lawrence being really, really good as Jean Grey, but there's a few other. Emma Stone, like, could have been really good.
Yeah, good point.
What goes? There's a fair amount of I can't remember her name, but she played. I think she was going to play Batgirl. Um, but anyway, there's a few actors I would have chosen, essentially ahead of Sophie Turner for Jean Grey. But anyway,
And Paul, we're not supposed to draw attention to technical difficulties or mistakes. You can probably tell I'm trying out a new camera and also it acted the arse there. So we're going to find out a lot of things live tonight. Um, but Paul, I think I completely agree. Sophie Turner, I think most people would agree that she was miscast for the portrayal that they were going to go with. But part of the reason for that is because there was a previous casting. Famke Janssen.
yeah, like,
I do think that she was good casting first time round for the Jean Grey that they were going to show and play.
she is very much the Jean Grey of the X-Men '90s cartoon.
Hmm.
Like, that's the thing that they really, really nailed well with those original kind of X-Men films, is that they were just like, we'll just copy and paste essentially '90s cartoon Jean Grey onto the screen, and that's what they did. Because when she becomes, even in the '90s TV show, when she becomes essentially the Dark Phoenix, she is very uncontrollable,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But she's not kind of manic. It's more kind of like not completely understanding of what's going on, kind of thing. But also, so powerful that it doesn't matter what's going on. But yeah, I do think that that's a problem. There is a lot of these kind of like already existing characters, um, or existing characters that are being portrayed by someone else that you need to compare them to. I think a
And
lot of mine have that.
and a better portrayal is maybe a harsh way of putting it, but it works out once. That means that it has to work out the next time, or else it's viewed as a failure. Whereas if it didn't work out the first time, you can look like a genius with any improvement in who you cast. But yeah, I'd agree. So there's a couple of mismatches. Paul, how about we? Are you happy to let the Phoenix
Yeah.
smolder in the ashes with that one? And I'm hoping that no more messages come up on my screen. I'm going to get to the one that I promised myself I wouldn't put on this list, but I'm doing it anyway. And it wasn't in the original notes that I sent you, and then I swapped it back in. I was going to be talking about something else. In Time, because In Time still annoys the crap out of me. Again, anybody who's been a long-time viewer of the show knows I think In Time is one of the all-time great misses when it comes to wasted idea, wasted potential, wasted script, wasted. It's a waste of brilliant sci-fi. And I watched it last week, weirdly enough, again, just because it was on my mind. I'm like, it has it all going for it. And the problem is, I think it was let down by multiple things, but it was very much let down by just completely wrong casting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's give them their moment. I'm gonna single out Justin Timberlake, but I think Amanda Seyfried has as much to say. As much to be held accountable for here. These are two people who I can name other movies, multiple other movies for each that they've been in, that they were very impressive. So it's not that they're bad; it's that they shouldn't have been here. They just shouldn't have been here. And the way I'm going to show why they shouldn't have been here is imagine the movie In Time. If you've never seen it, it's very, very simple. Very simple, brilliant premise. You hit 25, a clock starts in your arm. You basically are then living on 1 year's borrowed time. You have to earn time. It's now a time driven society. So the rich live forever, the poor live minute to minute, second to second. Wonderful little bit of sci fi. How do you make a bugger of that? Well, first of all, you do some great casting of all your side characters. You got Cillian Murphy, like absolute legend. What a great bit of casting he was. Olivia Wilde, not very small part, brilliantly believable, wonderfully executed. Had to play young, but also had to play old. Had to play Justin Timberlake's mother. Spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't seen In Time in the last 13 years or however long it's been out. But she brought the goods. And not only that, on paper, you're like, yeah, Olivia Wilde's got that kind of otherworldly weird thing that will make her captivating and make it work, thinking of her as somebody who's, 70 years old or whatever it is, but really she looks 25. Even some of the other side characters, like Matt, I never, if you're meant to say Bomber or Bomber, I think, from White Collar, etc.
Yeah.
Handsome man, has again small but pivotal role, brilliantly cast. He's got those eyes that make him he's got the mystery. He's playing a character of mystery. You got Vincent Catheiser, who I found first time most people are like, oh, the guy from Mad Men. I'm like, no, the guy from Angel. Connor in Angel. Yeah. There you go, folks. Is there anybody who's better cast as the smarmy, rich, guy you're supposed to dislike? No, and I'm sure he's a lovely. I'd love to meet him in person and go. It's a bugger being you sometimes, I'd say, because you must just get offered punchable face roles, because he does have punchable face syndrome. It was all downhill after Angel as far as his hero roles go. But even Johnny Galecki in the middle there, our good old Big Bang Theory boy, that's casting. That was all smart. That was all working really well. But then you've got the men that they've chosen to use. They could have had Jake Gyllenhaal. They could have had Michael B. Jordan. I'm only picking a couple of people because they could have had a list of people. But these are other actors that around the time of making this would have been at the right profile to maybe be gettable. Definitely Michael B. Jordan would have been absolutely gettable. They could have launched his career on the back of this.
Yeah.
But can you imagine this movie with, let's say, Jake Gyllenhaal doing the Justin Timberlake role?
Yeah, I could.
Can you imagine it being 10 times better because of it?
I don't know.
Oh, gimme.
This is the interesting. I definitely understand my problem with the movie is essentially Amanda Seyfried, and Justin Timberlake's chemistry,
which is non-existent.
Is terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's my I actually don't think because Justin Timberlake plays a really good kind of I guess con man type person, and but I
Hustler.
think just linking him in with Amanda, it then goes all bananas, because then the main person you have to talk to is essentially someone who seems very bewildered that they're in a movie.
Okay. Well then how about we move on to her for a second, because there's some choices. Again, when you consider the time and where they were in their career, some of them would have been harder to get than others. I think Scarlett Johansson would have been a very difficult get at the time. However, you could have had a shot with Anne Hathaway, as far as if you're a casting director. Her chemistry with Justin Timberlake probably would have worked better. I don't know why I'm saying that. I just get that feeling. But then Emily Blunt, again, I agree with you that there was no chemistry there, but I also just think for the characters that they had to play, she had to play somebody from high society that had just turned 25. But I think she was more cast like a baby doll character, and dressed thusly, and I don't know how she was directed, because again, she can act. She's been in other movies. She is
Yeah.
a decent actress. There is no reason to suspect she can't act. I just, even on paper, I would have gone, no, I don't see it. Now, the Justin Timberlake argument, Justin Timberlake he does play cheeky con man, grifter, hustler thing. That's fine. But the protagonist for this movie is supposed to be poor kid. Poor kid who's been, grifting, etc. And this is going to come as a big surprise because there's no envy here, folks. He has the boy band look. It's what made him work really, really well in the Facebook movie, Aaron Sorkin's Social Network. But I think Jake Gyllenhaal, still a handsome man, and do not get me wrong, still a very handsome man. And I've just realised there was something that was supposed to be turned off the entire time we were on air. Sorry for the buzzing in the background if you heard it. Jake Gyllenhaal is way more your kind of, okay, I can believe he's from this district where these people are a long way down the rungs of society.
Yeah.
Timberlake didn't project that. I don't think the way he portrayed things was terrible, but I think he's got a little bit too much. Hey, I'm suave. I'm hip. I'm doing it. I know that he's playing it off, and you're picking it up perfectly as kind of a hustler, grifter, con man vibe. It just doesn't hit for me as well. So it's probably a personal thing. Not that I hate you, JT. I'm sure you're a lovely dude. But I'm like, God, why didn't the movie work then? Was it just their chemistry that made the movie not work?
See, my thing is, I think he is. So, for bad casting, I believe that he is the worst of a good lot. As in, he's the worst of a good lot of actor choices for that character. I do think Jake Gyllenhaal or Michael B. Jordan would have done better jobs. But I do think a lot of it was chemistry, because if you think how fast that character essentially then joins with Amanda Seyfried's character, it's then essentially their chemistry that I think you have to deal with a lot.
Yeah.
And I do think that Emily Blunt or Anne Hathaway, like, they're just charismatic, like, chameleons. But I think their chemistry would have been really perfect and stuff like that. Even with with Timberlake or Jake Gyllenhaal, I don't think it would have mattered with those people. With Emily Blunt or Anne Hathaway, Scarlett Johansson, I do agree, too big at this time.
Yeah, she was just about to hit Avengers, so yeah, probably not. Oh no, just about to. Around then, I think it would have been just about to be introduced in Iron Man 2. So
yeah.
But look, Emily Blunt for me, like, can you imagine? This is a character that has to play. I'm disappointed in my daddy, played by Vincent Punchface himself. Have it being disillusioned with the perfect privileged life that she's got, being excited and interested by Timberlake's character. Sorry, Amanda Seyfried, you didn't pull any of it off, and yeah, I think their chemistry just was not there. There was no spark. There was no nothing.
Yeah.
So Paul, tis time for me to stop banging on about In Time, and I promise, folks, the show will get pulled together from this point on. So Paul, pick one, and I promise no more technical difficulties.
Hellboy. Yeah.
Been waiting for this because I'm not too sure if I agree.
Which Hellboy, though?
Well, I would not continue talking to you if it was the Perlman Hellboy, because that is the epitome of perfect casting. We all know it.
The 2019 character. David Harbour took up the mantle of essentially Hellboy in the 2019 re-adaptation of Hellboy directed by Neil Marshall, which was, I just needed to think. It was the more R-rated kind of Hellboy character or Hellboy kind of portrayal,
and it was a bit shit. And it was a bit shit, to be fair.
Yeah, So my thing is that I think David Harbour was bad casting because he didn't actually take the character as his own.
Ooh.
He mixed it in with a lot with a more gruffer version of essentially, which is Ron Perlman's Hellboy. So he's still more playful and more jokey and more amenable than probably an R-rated version of the character. And I don't mean that we need like the Crow,
Mm.
like or kind of dark, or kind of like very dark kind of like I guess kind of just Batman esque kind of Hellboy kind of character. I just mean that it felt very much like he took what had happened or what was brought on before and essentially just slightly made it more R rated rather than fully taking on the character and making it more his. So that's where my difference is. The overall movie is terrible. And I like but I think David Harbour would have been able to pull off a better version of the Hellboy, but because it's in this particular movie, it's by casting.
Okay, so the movie is the problem, and therefore casting him in this, he was the wrong choice for the movie they were going for. But you don't
Yes,
think
yeah, I
he's necessarily bad casting for Hellboy if they had been
for
making the right movie.
for a version of Hellboy, he would have been perfect.
Okay,
But for this version of Hellboy, he is not a good casting choice.
because I like the guy. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I just like the guy. And I
Oh,
thought, you know what? Good casting. On paper, I would have been like, you know what? Whoever came up with this, get in here. Big hug. Oh, rub of the cheeks. Look at you with your good casting choices. I love it. Although, if I'd been reading the whole script at that point, I'm sure I would have been like, we're not making this. This is a mistake. I was about to go R-rated myself there and start effing and blinding all over it because I think that's what they thought they were going to carry the movie off on. A bit of gross, a bit of gore, and a bit of cursey curse. Yeah, if I don't think he would have beaten Ron Perlman even in the Ron Perlman movies, Hellboy 1 and 2.
no.
Um, but I don't think he would be bad casting as a Hellboy. So I was expecting to argue with you, but I agree with your point that when they
Yeah,
decided to go for the Hellboy that they were going for, he wasn't going to be a good choice because, yeah, he wasn't.
I don't.
He's
So
not suited to make that kind of role his own. I don't think.
I think that the problem was that they really tried to plug the R-ratedness in, and I think that, but they had to restrict it because they were just like, no, everybody knows Hellboy as the Ron Perlman
Mm.
adaptation of him, so we need to kind of have a mix of him and that, and then the choices that David Harbour had to make within those restrictions made it a bad casting choice because I think if he was given a lot more freedom, if he was
Hmm.
like, if I was the director, I'm like David, okay, so we're gonna make an R-rated what is it, Hellboy, okay,
Mm.
and like Ian McShane is going to be Professor Broom, and we've got like we've got a great cast, and we've got a fairly kind of R-rated, darker kind of thing. What do you want to do with the character? What elements do you want to bring to the character that are different from what's come before? I think that question would have been really good to have
Mm.
asked David Harbour, because I think he would have gone, okay, well, in this world and that, I need to take these things, and he still needs to have some sense of humor, but we need to make it a little bit darker and a little bit more kind of like within the realms of this world. Like the God's sake, literally the end of the movie is literally demons. Like, spoiler alert, demons arrive on the planet and start killing loads and loads of people, and he comes off with a couple of quips, and you're just like, not the time. That's not
Again,
the vibe that we're going with,
again,
kind of thing.
David Harbour bad casting or just bad movie, bad script? Because I'm
I
going to give him I'm giving him a pass on this myself, just because I don't. I think you're right. He was for the shit that they were making. They needed somebody else to be able
hmm,
to elevate it and lift it, and he's not the right choice for that. Not that he can't elevate things. I agree with you. He can't elevate that what they were aiming for.
yeah,
So I agree with you in principle. But I think it's such a clown show that he was trapped in. I'm giving him the back doors that way. Run, I'll cover for you.
But we've been doing that with several characters as well, just
It's
about
true.
the movies in this as well. So like, I do agree, it's bad casting because the movie is terrible, kind of thing. It's just my problem is now we've essentially no longer have the option for another David Harbour Hellboy
Yeah,
kind of thing. That's my pity to it. If
and that's
because
true.
like because my thing is, if Ron Perlman didn't want to do, if let's say my boy came back and was just like, I really want to do another which because if Del Toro wanted to come back and do another Hellboy, and Ron Perlman couldn't do it, David Harbour would be a perfect like person to cover for Ron Perlman. I think.
Yeah, it's true.
I think he would have been an excellent step in
Yeah.
for that version of Hellboy. But I think also if you wanted to make it more darker, I think you just have to let him do it. And just be
Mm.
like, you don't need to make the quips. You don't need to make him as like, weirdly kind of funny and trying,
Do you know?
you can.
Trying to think of who you'd put in instead for the movie they did make. If you were the casting director and trying to fix this, do you know who could have worked? He passed away a couple of years ago now. He was in Punisher Warzone, and his name is escaping me. He was also in Ahsoka. I am so sorry that his name is escaping me, but
I know who you're talking about.
I think he would have been an interesting choice. And at the time, because it was a few years ago, he still would have been able to pull it off, I think, very much. And he's a big menacing presence, as he was, but having more natural, gruff malevolence, I think, than David Harbour. Yes, it is Ray something. Thank you, Gavin.
Ray Stevenson.
Thank you very much. I think somebody like him would have been an interesting choice for the movie that they were trying to make, because you do need somebody who's going to be able to. Like, I think you've nailed it. Yeah, I think you know what, you've won me around. You're right.
David Bautista would have been a great choice for this Hellboy as well.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
I think David Bautista would have been a good choice for this version of Hellboy.
Oh well, you know what?
Um,
He's relaunching his career and trying to be a leading man now. So you never know, if there is another Hellboy, he may well get the call up. Paul, I'm conscious of time and I'm conscious of everything. This is one of those fun ones. I hope the live people are enjoying, because I think it's going to be difficult to edit in the YouTube studio to make this all one make sense. So I want to go to the comments for a second, Paul, if you don't mind,
yeah, go for it.
because I didn't include this. But Brian is right. Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny
get
Depp
that.
can act. The idea of that portrayal and whatever they were trying to do in that whole movie is a mess. So was Johnny Depp bad casting? To be fair,
No.
was he bad casting?
No, I think the Tim Burton Willy Wonka and the Tim Burton like Mad Hatter thing. I think it was just the horrible kind of downhill of Tim Burton's kind of career, and like sadly Johnny Depp was just caught up in that.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it was all a mistake and he was just part of it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not absolving him of anything, because I have a funny feeling their creative relationship resulted in an awful lot of the dross that they did together.
Yeah.
You want to go for Gavin's next one?
I don't agree.
And what is it? Because the
Henry
other
Cavill,
movies-
Henry Cavill as Superman has never sat well. Almost casting indigestion from that one. I don't agree.
I do. We've talked about this before. I don't know if Henry Cavill was the right choice for Superman for me. And saying it's never quite sat well is maybe the best way of putting it. I get it from afar, but anytime I get close up to it, I just have this uncomfortable feeling of, yeah, I don't know if he's my Superman. I understand why everybody else enjoys him massively, though. At least it's not one that I can't wrap my head around.
I don't think he was a good Superman in the Zack Snyder's Superman.
As in Man of Steel.
Yeah, I don't think, and in Justice League, I don't think that version of Superman was not a Henry Cavill role. I think that's why it doesn't sit well, because weirdly Zack Snyder cannot do Superman. He shouldn't have been the one to do Superman. He should have been doing something else. Batman. Wouldn't mind Batman.
Yeah, that's true. He shouldn't have been doing Superman.
That man should never have touched like the light of day being Superman. And Henry Cavill would have been a better Superman if another director had directed that film.
And do you think he was a better Superman in Batman v Superman? Do you think that's where you saw that he could do it?
He gets he gets better and better, but I think knowing the fact that he can act with other characters like in The Witcher and stuff. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Like, I think he was very restricted about what he was allowed to do as that character. I think they were trying to make him more Christopher Reeves Superman rather than making him more modern day man, like modern day Superman.
Yeah, I think they were trying to recapture Christopher Reeve in their own way, and that's a bad idea. Never, don't go back and try and recapture it. It's so difficult to get right. Your risk versus your reward is too high.
I think they're always trying to recapture it. I think in Superman, the new Superman and Lois TV show, they've got a perfect new age version of Superman, even though he is more like Christopher Reeves in certain ways.
Well, and thank you all for the comments, by the way. Just to get through a few of them, Brian says Tarantino and everything, haha. You know what? From Dusk Till Dawn, he played a creepy weirdo who turned into a vampire. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that hanging out there. Very weird film, that one. Yes. TC is Reacher, so Tom Cruise, a smaller man playing a bigger man. Here's the thing: if you'd never read the Reacher books or knew nothing about Reacher, there are two Tom Cruise Reacher movies, particularly the first one, and I mean that particularly the first one. I have a lot of time for that movie. So if you take it away from the Reacher name and just take the idea that they went with as a movie, I think it's a great movie. But for fans of Reacher, I can completely understand why. And that's been kind of followed through and shown in the Reacher TV show.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 thing, yeah. I think if you didn't know what as you say Reacher looked like, he's grand. But yeah. Reacher fans probably.
But I think for what he was playing in, let's say, his Reacher verse, where the Tom Cruise Reacher verse, I think he played it well. I actually think it's one of his better performances too. I think he's believable as somebody who's one step ahead of you and is very self-assured. Could just be the Scientology speaking, who knows? But he's definitely very confident. Paul, let's get back and get through our other mentions. I'm going to hit Uncharted real quick, and I'm going to make this easy. For anybody who's never played an Uncharted game, it's pretty simple. Uncharted is one of those games where you're playing it going, very Indiana Jonesy. Actually, you know what? This could make a really good movie. Lots of people thought that for a very long time, and there are two key characters. I've shown them on screen as what the final casting choices were, which is Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland, who were cast as Sully and Nathan Drake, respectively. Here's the problem. Not good, because Mark Wahlberg, at a previous time, I would have understood him being Nathan Drake and somebody else being Sully. He got the wrong part. Tom Holland, the reason he could play Spider-Man and can keep playing Spider-Man is he's got a very youthful vibe. Yeah. Too youthful a vibe for Nathan Drake. Everybody wanted Nathan Fillion, and Nathan Fillion could easily have been Nathan Drake. There was even that short fan film thing that we all love, and we're like, brilliant, just let him do it. But also, Chris Pratt could have done it around that time. He's proven that he could. I think it would have been interesting if Colin Farrell had done it at that time. It would have been a real different thing for him. Wouldn't have probably been something that interests him. And that's just your Nathan Drakes. Now you get back to your Sullys, and you're like, you know what? Sorry, I better shut them down for 1 second. Nathan Drake could have played Sully. Or Nathan Fillion could have played Sully if they were going to go, okay, he's slightly older now. Nathan Fillion he could have played either part at various times. But if you didn't want to go there, you could go with Bruce Campbell. Like, the fact that it's so easy to just keep coming up with people, like Bryan Cranston would have been great. Imagine Bryan Cranston and, let's say, Chris Pratt in Uncharted. Yeah. Now imagine that movie working, because it doesn't feel like a vacuous cash grab of a movie. Because that's like, Uncharted is not the worst film you're ever going to see. I don't say to people don't watch it. I say just set your expectations where they need to be. Somewhere just below middle, and you'll come out happy.
Sam Elliott as Sully.
Ah, beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Sam Elliott would have been great.
Yeah,
Now,
I think
possibly physically too old at the time. Because how long ago was Uncharted? Was it just pre-pandemic or post?
was so Uncharted was in the middle, I
Yeah.
think, somewhere in the middle. But I think Sam, because Sully doesn't really do much kind of actiony stuff in the games.
No, that's
But
true.
I don't think you need like him. You can still have him as like the kind of character where he's like the logistics guy
And
who
he's
turns up at
exposition
the
man.
other.
He's helping explain things and move your plot along too.
Yeah, and like takes up kind of Overwatch positions and stuff like that. Alongside kind of like Chris Pratt or Nathan Fillion or Colin Farrell would have been an interesting choice. I think Sam Elliott would have been, because I like him in Parks and Recreation as Ron Dunn. He's very good in that.
Yeah, and look, I'm just throwing up random selections. There's a lot of other castings that would have worked, but you know what? On paper, I would have said, really Tom Holland, really Mark Wahlberg. Oh, I get it. I get it. You've probably got a pre-existing contract with Wahlberg, who was maybe supposed to play Nathan Drake, and you've dragged your feet so long. Now you're going to use him. Tom Holland's got a bit of Spider-Man heat. Let's get him in there and see if we can get some young
That's
people
it.
in to see this video game movie. We've gone past the point of messing around with video game movies. They can make money and they can be serious art. Uncharted was a needless miss, and I think it was some
Cash grab.
terrible casting.
Cash grab.
Cash grab, indeed. So, what do you want, Paul?
Snowpiercer, the TV series.
Which I have not watched, but
Yep.
I am very excited to hear your thoughts.
David Diggs of various fame, but very much known for his portrayal of in Hamilton, of I think one of I think it's I need to remember which person, but yeah, he is a very good actor.
Okay.
Very charismatic.
Mhm.
In Snowpiercer, he is not. He is a terrible, like, I think he made a terrible choice of a character to make him a little bit more serious than he should be.
Oh.
And it's really portrayed well because the characters around him are so charismatic. And I don't even mean that they're just nicer, kind of more feels more rounded kind of characters. Um, in one of the series, it's very much on his back. A lot of episodes, and they are voted. Fans have voted them as the worst episodes in the entire series
Oh.
because it's very much on his back as the main character. Like he plays Leighton, Andre Leighton, who is portrayed in the movie by Steve Evans.
Okay.
Which was Steve Evans, yes, Chris Evans,
Chris Evans.
Getting Chris,
Sorry,
his character,
because I knew who you were talking
Steve
about.
Rogers and Chris Evans getting confused there. Chris Evans plays him in the movie, and he's a very good kind of character. But David Diggs in this Leighton, it's just he's a more serious character, with a lot less charisma, and a lot more kind of like I guess. You don't understand why people rally around him.
Okay.
A lot of the time, the character doesn't seem like it seem like it seems more that it's just an people are just like, yeah, Leighton will do it, kind of thing, and it's just like, no, it should be no. Leighton is our leader.
Yeah, you got to have a Neo Matrix moment where he's your quite literally your Neo Messiah who's gonna bring you from the back of the train up the front.
Yeah, like so the whole thing is that it's like it's very difficult to watch him, who is a very charismatic person, like outside of this character, portray someone who is essentially a board with a gun.
So
Especially when you're surrounded by Jennifer Connelly, Sean Bean, Rowan Blanchard, like Alison Rice, who are all main characters in this movie, and they're so good characters. That when you like, it's how like so you were saying in time, all the surrounding characters are so good. It really shows how bad the main characters are.
Okay.
It's the same. It's a similar thing. Everybody else is so good in this that it really shows, which is Diggs's Leighton very badly.
Do you think it would have been solved by going for somebody older who would have maybe been able to, so, and when I say older, I mean an actor with enough experience across enough, maybe, TV series or movies to say, okay, I see what's on the page here, but here's how we're going to have to, play this with enough charisma to make me feel like the leader, when the print finally hits the screen.
Yeah, there's a few people that I would have chosen kind of that could possibly play it. The problem is that the reason I'm choosing this as bad casting is because of the choices that Diggs has made himself. It feels like that's the choices he's made himself. So
Right.
I think if he hadn't made those choices and tried to make the character a little bit more kind of amenable to other characters around him, it would have been a perfect casting choice. But because of the choices that he has made,
Yeah.
because like the problem is that like I cannot blame the directors of the show and the showrunners or anything because every other character is so good
Right.
that
And you,
like
you don't write just one bad character if you've nailed everything else. You don't direct, you don't design, you don't push, you don't, your showrunner is not going to guide. So I see what you're saying. And that's why I jumped to, is it lack of experience on his part? Because apologies, I don't know him from anything really. I'm not that familiar with him and I haven't watched the show. So maybe is it just from an experience point of view, he didn't have what it took to take from page to screen and add the nuance needed to maybe keep it. Because like Jennifer Connelly, it's tough being on screen with her and Sean Bean at the best of
yeah,
times. They've been around, they know what they're at.
my reason that he might not be as a good choice for this role is not is kind of it's not experience as one would think. He's got a lot of experience in voice acting.
Okay.
And in Hamilton, obviously, it's a musical kind of thing. And I say that he's probably a lot more of an he could be. I haven't like a lot more of an on stage character or an on stage actor kind of thing. I think that's the level. I think his on screen experience might be lacking, and the body language and certain sterner choices in his character has made it a little bit more difficult to like him as a person.
Okay.
Um, he's like the teacher's pet. The
Oh,
character's like he's like the teacher's pet, where he's and you know how like people call Captain America the Boy Scout, and they're trying to make fun of him of being a straight Arab, but everybody's drawn towards that character anyway.
yep.
This is what happens when you have essentially a Boy Scout that isn't liked by everybody, that aren't automatically drawn towards them.
Bit of a charisma
You know,
vacuum then. Oh, okay. Well, it's a show that I hadn't watched, but if the protagonist isn't being portrayed well enough, then I can imagine that there are probably some seriously disappointing episodes.
he is really well drowned out by or like surrounded by really really other good characters that the overall show doesn't suffer, but there's a season where he is essentially one of the main plot drivers
Right.
a lot more than the rest of them,
So
and it just
there's a
makes
leak in the boat, but it still floats. Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, well, Paul, I'm looking at clock, so I'm going to say really, really quickly. I have a quick honorable mention that I just want to throw in there. If anybody's ever subjected themselves, I'm a car guy. Everybody knows I'm a car guy. Need for Speed. It's a video game that was being made into a bad movie. Just going to call it what it was. I have a soft spot for some of it just because I like cars. Even then, the car casting's not brilliant, but for me, I could be wrong. I just haven't played all the Need for Speed games, so maybe it's perfect for Need for Speed people. However, the humans that they chose, I couldn't pick one. I want to say all of them. And the reason I want to say all of them, with the exception of Imogen Poots, I thought with what she was given, she did all right. Let's just put it this way: Madam Web is in this thing. It's a who's who of people who have only ever managed to pull off one role, really, that I've ever seen each of them do. Okay, Remy Malek's in this thing, and it was early days for him. But overall, this was just one of those things where I think they thought, we'll get Aaron Paul, we'll have we'll have the interest from the Breaking Bad heat that he's bringing. We got Dakota Johnson, we got what's his name, the other guy, the English dude who I can't even bother remembering his name right now because he never really impresses me. It was all Michael Keaton's even in this damn thing as a radio voice hamming it up. He was doing stuff for money at the time, I assume. It's not a good movie, but it could have been made better with, how about, I should put this bluntly, better actors who are unknown rather than trying to go for known actors that weren't actually good enough. And I'm sick of being polite. If you watch the movie, you'll know what I mean. And I give Imogen Poots a complete pass. I'll let her go. She can go free. The rest go in the bin.
I haven't seen this movie.
Oh, dude, you're in for some laugh. We may well make this one of our watch-alongs
Live
while
watch.
drunk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't know.
So there's a couple of very famous ones that you've got to get in as your mentions.
Yeah, and one of them's a real terrible pet peeve, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze in Batman and Robin. I don't think I need to say too much about that. And then God,
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor in Batman versus Superman, or Superman versus Batman. That was a choice, and it was bad casting. So here's the thing. It was bad casting if this is entirely Jesse Eisenberg's choice to play Lex Luthor, like essentially a cross between the Riddler and the Joker.
Yeah. That's a good description, actually, of how you played it.
If it was the director's choice, then I apologize to Jesse Eisenberg for saying that he is bad casting for this character and will entirely blame Zack Snyder. But he is bad casting because he is playing such a manic difference of Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is the pinnacle of human conditioning in physicality. He is he's terribly smart, and I mean terribly smart, because he gets to that logical stage where, like, Vulcan logical stage, where it's just like, but in an evil sense.
Thanos logic.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah, where he's so smart that he starts making calculations on human lives, kind of thing. Where he did not. Like, it's just they're honorable mentions because I don't want to go too much. I think that Arnold Schwarzenegger could have played a better version of Mr. Freeze, which is a pity once again, but he was a terrible casting choice at this point. I think now he would have been a great Freeze at this point in his career.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're onto something there. Good honourable mentions, Paul, because I don't think we could have gone on without them. Dominic Cooper, by the way, thank you very much. Dominic Cooper, good in The Wire, and not much else. That's what I said. Thank you very much, Brian, for backing me up. All of those Need for Speed people, again, Imogen Poots, you may go free. One good role, and have yet to prove it outside of that. For me, again, all of that's for me. So, Paul, this episode's been a funny little car crash for us. I want to thank our regular viewers and wonderful commenters. Anybody watching this in future times will have edited out some of the rubbish and left in an awful lot of the rest of it. I hope you enjoy it. I'd love you to share with your friends. Subscribe if you want to see our better episodes. And trust me, we've done better. We've also done worse. Find them. They're just as much fun. But get in the comments. Give us your bad casting. Who should not have been cast as X and why?
Yep. So don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Like 80% of you are not subscribed. It means very little to you, but it means a lot to us. It lets us expand the channel a little bit more and get some of those features opened up. So please, we are on the march to 500.
Yes, which is really the march to 1,000. So everybody, tell your friends, get them to do it too. All right, well then, Paul, with that, I'm just going to say we're the only two people I would cast for this channel, and I think most people would have it that way too.
I hope so.
I've been Patrick.
I've been Paul.
And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.